And good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending the virtual meeting for Planning Committee on Tuesday. Good evening. The Tuesday, the 2nd of March 2020. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Councillor June Molyneux. I'm chair of the committee. Councillor Chris Francis, vice chair. Also present are officers, councillors who will be asked to introduce themselves in a moment. Please note it's a virtual meeting and a recording of the meeting will be available online following the meeting. If you've joined the call because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. If you're calling on a phone, you need to press *6 to unmute your device when invited to speak. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and will confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if you're in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. Otherwise, your microphone will be muted. For ease, a pack's been prepared which contains reports, plans, presentation slides and any addendum for each item to ensure everyone can easily follow the agenda, which is also available online. After officers have presented the report and speakers have made their representations, I'll invite members to make any comments. When speaking, please reference the paragraph number to enable everyone to follow you. I'll repeat the motion before the vote's taken to ensure everyone is aware of what is being voted on. I'll call upon each member alphabetically to vote. If the technology fails, which it already has done once, then I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue, or if it's not possible, a new date and time will be organised. Please can I ask all members to confirm they can hear and speak before the meeting begins. I'll call out each member. Councillor Beaver?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Boardman?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Dodson?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Conference?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Danny G?
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. Councillor Gray?
Here, Chair.
Councillor Hargreaves?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Hilton?
Present, Chair.
Councillor Morwood?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Whittam?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Whitaker?
Present.
And Councillor Chris France.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Also our officers, Jonathan Node, who's Director of Planning and Development.
Chair, Jonathan sends his apologies tonight.
Oh, right, okay. Adele Hayes.
Yes, I'm here, Chair, thank you.
Yeah. Ian Crossland.
Here, Chair.
Tasneem Safdar, who's our shared legal services team leader. And Nina, who's Democratic officer. Okay.
Yes, here, Chair.
Excellent. Apologies. I don't think there have been any. Am I right, Nina?
Yeah, we haven't had
from
any
Jonathan.
apologies from any members, Chair.
Okay. Okay. Have we got the minutes of Tuesday, the 2nd of February, pages 3 to 6 on your pack? Will somebody propose those, please?
I'll propose them, Chair.
Thank you. Will somebody second them?
Yes, Chair. Aaron.
Thank you. And I'm assuming, unless anybody speaks now, that everybody's happy with those. That's the silence tells me it all. Declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in the agenda. As it's a virtual meeting, if a member has a pecuniary interest, they are asked to leave the call completely rather than just mute their microphone for the item. They can then rejoin the call following the completion of the item in question. We have 4 planning items for determination tonight. For the benefit of the public here tonight, the speaking arrangements for planning applications are as follows. Officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or their agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I'll grant the applicant or her representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings and ask that your mobile phones just switch to silent. With that, we will move on to the items. Item 3, and can I ask members to mute their microphone when they're not speaking, please, as well. Item 3A, 2 Oak Drive, Chorley, pages 7 to 40. Ian's going to present this item, which is recommended for that planning permission is granted subject to conditions. And I have registered speakers. I have an objector, Phil Loynes, Ward Councillor Adrian Lowe, and the applicant Judith Rind. Phil, Adrian, Judith, can you please confirm that you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
This is Phil. I can hear. Can you hear me?
You can hear. Councillor Lowe?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And Judith is phoning in. Or not. Okay, anyway, she might join us later. Ian, can you present this report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey building with accommodation in the roof space, comprising 10 single-bedroom apartments, along with associated infrastructure following the demolition of the existing building, which can be seen in the presentation slides. The application site comprises a vacant care home building located within the core settlement area of Chorley on a private drive adjacent to the A6 and M61 link road at Millennium Way. The site is previously developed land in a sustainable location where there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development as set out in the framework and Chorley local plan. There are no policies in place that would protect the retention of the care home or the existing building. The proposed building will be of a traditional form with some contemporary window features and will be faced in brick. It would have a smaller footprint in comparison with the existing building that would be replaced and will be only marginally higher at eaves level, whilst the ridge height of the proposed building would be more noticeably higher. The application site itself is not a prominent one, being screened by dense landscaping from Millennium Way to the north and set back from the head of a cul-de-sac at Rowan Grove to the south, while Stoke Drive itself is a private road. As such, public views of the site are limited. It's noted that the existing site suffers a sense of abandonment, and the proposed development does have the potential to improve its appearance. In relation to the impacts on the amenity of neighbouring occupiers, it's noted that there is already an impact from the existing building on the site. It's considered that the proposed development would have no unacceptable detrimental impacts on residential amenity in consideration of this current situation, subject to the inclusion of some obscure glazed windows and the provision of an appropriate boundary treatment scheme. The council's parking standards will be met, and LCC Highways have assessed the scheme and raised no objection. It's therefore considered that the proposed development would not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity of the site. There would also be a secure bicycle storage on site. There are no ecological concerns in relation to the site, which has been assessed by GMEU, the council's ecology advisors, and the site isn't in an area of flood risk. Overall, the proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Phil, would you like to make your representations now, please? Yeah. And Taz, can you start the timer, please?
So I'm Phil. I live on Linden Grove, and I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of the Hartwood estate. Due to the COVID regulations, it's not been possible to effectively communicate with everybody, but I'll try my best to convey all the comments. There's been multiple times in the past where sewage underneath Maple Grove, Linden Grove and Rowan Grove have needed freeing, and adding 10 flats to this load would not help that at all. There's also been a problem until very recently with rats. That was resolved by the council. However, having communal external bins for these flats inevitably encourage that again. The main issue, however, is parking and traffic. While noting LCC's comments, historically there has been an issue with dangerous parking on Maple Grove from hospital workers who understandably are trying to avoid paying to park at the hospital during their shifts, but also by people carpooling on the M61 and leaving their cars there all day. Yellow lines were recently put there by LCC to help avoid the immediate danger of having cars parked on the top of Maple Grove to prevent cars coming round the corner, a blind corner, from Millennium Way over the hill onto Maple Grove. 10 parking spaces is arguably not enough for the proposed development, and any visitors' parking spaces would inevitably be used inappropriately by hospital workers or commuters, making them void. The situation has recently been alleviated by the closure of the temple across the road because of COVID lockdown, and their offering of their empty car parks to NHS workers free of charge. But once this is open again and the car parks are in use, the parking issue will resume. A preliminary planning application by number 3 Oak Drive was met with discouragement by the council in the absence of a turning circle, as it was deemed inappropriate for vehicles to be reversing onto Hazel Grove, where cars approaching at a speed of maximum of 30 miles per hour on the A6, going on to 20 miles per hour onto Hazel Grove, could cause an issue. It's obvious that the current plans for number 2 Oak Drive don't allow ample turning space for delivery vehicles, bin lorries, or emergency vehicles, or visitors to number 3. And the entrance onto Maple Grove is met by vehicles leaving the M61 at 70 miles per hour, going down to 50 on the A674 Millennium Way, and then very quickly going down to 20 miles per hour over the brow of the hill onto Maple Grove around the blind corner. And there's been many near misses in recent times. It's understandably inappropriate, the advice given on the Hazel Grove side, and so the advice even more applies to Maple Grove, and it would be inappropriate for vehicles which would inevitably be reversing onto Maple Grove. These plans would increase the risk of a dangerous collision on this junction, and the only way to add a turning circle to the plans would be to remove the trees, which would be inappropriate. For these reasons, we object to the plans and ask that they be rejected.
Okay, thank you. Adrian, would you like to speak now, Councillor Lowe? Taz, can you start the timer?
Good evening, Chair, and good evening, councillors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Marion and myself, and also local residents. Our objections are listed in the report, and we're well aware that the scheme has been reduced from 12 dwellings as originally planned to this application of 10 dwellings, but the main reasons for objection still apply. If I can go through them very quickly, Chair. First objection is traffic and parking. Even though 14 spaces are proposed, all vehicle access will be off Maple Grove down a very narrow private drive. There will also be overspill onto nearby roads already suffering from parking issues and being used as a rat run to the adjacent industrial estate. Secondly, this application is completely out of character with the neighbourhood. It will completely change the character of the area, which on Oak Drive is currently 3 retired people living in 2 dwellings. If the application was for a single-use dwelling, then I don't think there would be too much of an issue. But what is being proposed is 10 apartments, which is out of character with the area. I refer members to paragraph 28 of the report, which states that the proposed property would be higher than the existing dwellings at number 1 and number 3. Third reason for objecting is over-intensification. This is far too many dwellings for the area. Fourth, the impact on the neighbourhood. We consider that it's got a detrimental impact on the wider area, including the residents of Rowan Grove, as outlined in paragraph 5 of the report. The fifth objection is access. It is noticed that vehicle access is to be from Maple Grove, but we have concerns over the narrowness of the private drive and the impact of number 3, who will still need access to their property and in effect a turning circle to be provided. It seems, Chair, that it's apparent, whilst referring to paragraph 18 of the report, that the planning framework seems unduly skewed in favour of developers. However, it is worth noting the old adage that officers recommend, members decide. Chair, with regard to the planning history, as mentioned in the report, members can see that it's had a checkered history. However, with looking at some of the recent planning application, it's dubious whether full permission was ever granted for a rest home. And it's worth noting to members that whilst the report is littered with comparisons with a rest home, it's never been used as such. It has remained derelict for over 20 years. The last permission, could I remind members, was in 2004, which was for a single dwelling, but that's never been enacted upon. Members should note that it was also deemed unsuitable to be a rest home, and no one has ever lived in the property. I hope that members will refuse the application for the reasons given, and thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Judith, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Would you like to speak now? And
Yes,
Taz, can you
okay.
start the timer, please?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Judith Rind. I'm a qualified nurse and scanning technician, and my husband is an orthopaedic surgeon at Chorley and Wrightington Hospital. We purchased 2 Oak Drive with planning permission and local support for the 22-bedded care home about 15 years ago. We would now like to do something healthcare related, but also value to the local community. The proposal is for 10 one-bedded flats for healthcare professionals. As you've already mentioned, the building footprint overall has been reduced. There are 4 beds planned on the ground, 4 on the first floor and 2 in the roof. The 2 in the roof will not be overlooking the houses at the rear. They're going to be mainly used for storage and bathrooms at the back via V-Lux roof windows, so not overlooking the neighbours. The windows to the rear of the property are fewer in number than the existing building and are shielded from overlooking neighbours again by established shrubs and existing trees. And just while I'm on this point, the trees and shrubs along the front of the property will absolutely not be removed as they provide a good sound barrier and privacy from the main road. It has nominated 10 car park spaces and 4 for visitors and bicycle storage provision. There is an absolute shortage of this type of accommodation within the Chorley area, and making it available, this would absolutely make it available for starter staff / entry-level staff into the hospital. And it will be built in an environmentally sensitive way with solar panels, water, electric, etc., and ground source heat pumps. So why healthcare professionals? Well, personally, we moved 12 times during my husband's medical training. We know the value of good accommodation, such as this proposal. But whilst living all together, it does provide a support network for the staff. Chorley Hospital in Preston, which is known as Lancashire Teaching Hospital, is the major employer in the area, employing just under 10,000 healthcare staff. They have feeder universities which supply hundreds of nurses, doctors, paramedics and physios to the hospitals, which generally are rotated between the 2 sites. Also note that there are 2 new recent medical schools which have opened, Preston Euclan and Edge Hill University. And there are also several nearby unis with their own nursing degrees, so a large number will be feeding into both sites. Overall, a major reason for the 10 one-bedded flats is the close proximity to the hospital just 200 yards away, affording staff to walk to work, which is a win-win situation for staff and the environment, and cars aren't essential. This proposal is intended to be an asset to our local community and one which supports our local health services, which we can now more than ever fully appreciate. So in summary, it's for 10 one-bedded flats for healthcare professionals. It enables staff to be able to walk or cycle to work, literally just 200 yards away from Chorley Hospital. And I believe this is a unique opportunity to support our local health services. And it's definitely an asset within the community. And lastly, to follow up on a point already mentioned, there will be fewer people on site than the already passed prior approval for the 22-bedded care nursing home, which did have full support at the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm now invite members for their comments and ask questions. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hand virtually on Teams. I've got Councillor Morwood, Councillor Hilton and Councillor Hargreaves. Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, first of all. Maybe Ian can help me with that. Where in the application does it say that this is specifically for healthcare professionals? Have I missed it somewhere? It may or may not have a bearing, but I'm just interested to see where that specific term is. It? Have I missed it somewhere? Could he point it out? Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, through you, Chair. It's not a specific proposal that could only be that could only accommodate healthcare workers. Obviously, that's the background of the developer, and that may be a market that they're seeking to accommodate. But it isn't specifically. It wouldn't specifically be tied to that group of people. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll come back later.
Okay. Councillor Hilton?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was a bit concerned about the size of these apartments to begin with, but having heard what the developer said about housing healthcare workers, I'm fully aware of these are the kind of people that would use this as a starting sort of platform before they went to move on within the local area. I think history recently has shown about it's difficult to attract healthcare workers to work in our hospitals, particularly in the A&E departments. And having accommodation close by, I think, is really important. The fact that it's environmentally friendly with the ground force heat pumps, I'm a big fan of that, and solar panels. I think after hearing the proposed use for this, I think it would support our local NHS. So I'm happy to propose the officer recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hargreaves, can I ask members to mute the microphones if they're not speaking, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a concern about the height of it, and I know Ian said that the actual apex end of it is it over a metre? Is it a metre higher than the current building at the moment? But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it will overshadow. Looking at the local plan, it will overshadow number 3. Number 3 will definitely be dwarfed by it, and it'll lose a lot of light at the side, which it currently enjoys. So I have no problem at all with accommodation, providing accommodation for nursing staff, etc. in the hospital. That's a brilliant thing. We do need it, but I don't think we need it to be that tall. And I think the height of the building is too high. It's inappropriate next to number 3, and I think we ought to consider that. It will overshadow them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gordon-France.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of obviously the accommodation being available to hospital staff so close to the hospital. They are providing 10 parking spaces with 4 visitor spaces. That's good, and a bicycle shed. That's equally good. I do have 1 or 2 concerns. I think myself, I would like to see a site visit because I am concerned about the access, the lane going up the side. I don't know the area, but obviously ward councillors are concerned, which is slightly worrying for me. So in principle, I do quite like the idea, but I think I would like to suggest a site visit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this thing about helping out the NHS staff is an absolute red herring. And the reason why I say that is on Dutch Bank Close, there are 33 properties, and that used to be held within Lancashire teaching hospitals. That wasn't used and has since been sold off, and there's still got empty properties on it. By the back gate, by the old maternity hospital, which is Rookwood Avenue, there used to be 4 houses right outside the gate. You couldn't get closer. They've been sold off. So I argue that there is a need in the first place. Ian mentioned at the beginning that there is no current deficit to neighbours for the current building. Well, the reason why there's no problem is because it's not occupied. There's no toilets being flushed. No sinks and baths, showers being used. And if there's problems with the drainage already, it can only add to it. I took points of the opposer mentioned about the previous application from 3 Oak Drive being refused, and yet this has come. And the size of this building, with it not being as wide as existing and being taller, it will give the impression of being massive just by its shape. And if people look, members, if you look on page, give me 1 second. with the photographs there. Just 1 second. Page 24. I go onto Google Earth. That estate is littered with detached and semi-detached houses. And I think that a block of flats in amongst this is totally inappropriate. And I'm minded to refuse, unless anyone can convince me any other way. Thank you, Chair.
Muted, Chair.
So I am. I'm that busy looking at my list. I've got Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Boardman, Councillor G, and Councillor Marwood again. Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Chair. We're all very appreciative of the work that's done by the NHS, and I think we have to have some sympathy for the proposal that's being made. I seem to recall I went on a site visit here about 2 or 3 years ago where we had some barn pot recommendations from LCC, which didn't make sense in any way, shape or form. I don't know the site very well. I listen to what people have said. I have some sympathy with the residents. We have, however, a building which has been there empty for 18 years, and we've got to do something with it. So Councillor Francis proposed a site visit. I'd like to second the site visit so that we can look at its dominating effect and the effect it might have on the residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Chair. I again have a few concerns. There are 3 concerns that I've got. Firstly, access. I agree. I think a site visit would be very useful for us to have a look at the access. Number 2, parking. Although there are 14 car parking spaces provided, 14 for 10 apartments, I don't actually think is enough. But if 14 cars were parked there, it would certainly stop any turning round at the at that location within the lane. So I'm not happy with the parking requirements. Thirdly, and probably the most important, is the inappropriateness of the size of the building within the residential area. We are used to seeing quite large inappropriate buildings within residential areas, but it doesn't mean we have to approve them. This isn't a greenbelt location; it is a town centre location. We do have to have some sympathy with that it is within the large settlement area, and certainly within commuter walking space of the hospital, if that's what the apartment's going to be used for. But I just think the sheer size and scale of that building on that small lane, with 3 buildings that are currently there, is inappropriate. I would like to move for a site visit, and I'd like to reassess my thoughts. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor G.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, and one Aaron brought up about the making these accessible for healthcare workers. I think they're playing on the sympathy of the committee on that one, because we all know that we can't make it a condition. We all know it's been tried for various places around the hospital. It doesn't work. So it might start off like that, but we all know that it'll end up that it'll be accommodation for anyone that is willing to take it, not just healthcare workers. So I think that's a bit of a red herring. I voted for rejection at the last one on this one, for when it was for 12 flats. I can't see any difference now, except that it's been reduced from 12 to 10, which is just it doesn't make any difference. 12, 10. The area is still the same. The problems that arise there are still the same. I personally would still like to go for refusal, but I'm quite happy to go with the committee for a site visit. But as I said, I'm very, very unhappy about this. I think it's something that we need to look at. So yeah, I'll go along with the committee for a site visit. That's if they vote for it. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, you're muted.
I wondered why you were taking no notice of me, Councillor Marwood.
My turn.
That was muted.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I won't.
Apologise.
No problem. I won't keep the committee long, because a lot of it's been said. I think I've got a flavour of what we think. I have to emphasise Councillor Beaver and Councillor G's. Much as we love the NHS, that absolutely should be ignored. In fact, I suppose in a way, had it been specifically for NHS, I may have had other concerns, because they don't all work 9 to 5, so that would have been all times of going in and out. So I think we should ignore that, as I say, in terms of this application. I'm not unhappy about the building overall, simply because the current situation is, as Councillor Whitaker said, is deplorable. It's a mess. It's overgrown. It's dilapidated. It's tired. I'm not surprised there's rats. And so an improvement on there by building something that's useful, worthwhile in that area is to be recommended. I'm not quite sure it's 10 single persons flats. But my main concern is, like everyone else, this private road with up to 14 spaces and 14 cars or more going in and out of a private drive, and I presume everyone has sorted out the who can drive across the private road, but that's not for planning. But going in and out onto an estate road, as it's been mentioned, which is a bit a rat run, and is an accident waiting to happen, because they come off Millennium Way, they cut through to Millennium Way, they ignore the no entry signs. It's a terrible corner. That particular part, and so I'm happy to go along with the recommendation for a site visit. I think it will open. Let's now emphasise to committee members, those who don't know it, please come along, because I think it will open your eyes to a very tricky situation at that corner. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Beaver, do you want to come back, or have you just not put your hand down?
No, I'd like to come back, please, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal to refuse this planning application, but I'm quite equally happy to go along with the site visit. However, I would say, if we're going to get a lot of councillors there, come early, because there's not much room to park. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, at the moment, I've got a proposal and a secondary for a site visit, proposal and a secondary refusal, proposal for the officer recommendation. I'm going to take the proposal for the site visit first. So it's for or against a site visit. I'll go through people alphabetically. So it's for or against a site visit. Councillor Beaver.
For, Chair.
Councillor Boardman.
For.
Councillor Dalton.
For a site visit.
Councillor Gordon-France.
For.
Thank you. Councillor G.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Hargreaves.
For.
Councillor Hilton.
Against.
Councillor Marwood.
For.
Councillor Whittam.
For.
Councillor Whitaker.
For.
Councillor France.
Abstain.
Oh, I've not got that on my list. I only have 4 and against. And myself, I'll vote for a site visit. So the outcome of that is a site visit. I think it was, I've got 12 for, 1 against and 1 abstention. If somebody wants to confirm that.
Chair,
Yeah.
I've got 10 for and 1 against and 1 abstain.
Yeah,
So
well,
I suppose the actual proposal for a deferral of this matter until a site visit takes place is as the actual vote itself.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Dalton, you've got your hand up.
I do recall this application last time we went to visit it 3 or 4 years ago, and one of us nearly got run down, didn't we? I think that was you, June.
Probably. Well, anyway, we're going on a site visit.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Okay. So, moving on. Thank you. Item 3.
Chair, it's
Sir.
Chair, it's
Sorry?
Adele. I did have my hand.
It's Adele
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
I did have
sorry,
my
I
hand
missed
up.
you. Oh,
Yeah,
yes, I missed
apologies.
you down there.
Yeah, I'm
Go
just
on, Adele.
mindful for the record that there was a proposal to refuse it, but we didn't make a note of the reason for refusal. I suspect that's somewhat academic now, given the vote has been taken. Maybe we could get some what the legal comment on that. Do we need to actually have a record what the proposed reason for refusal was? Thank you.
But I think it was inappropriate development. It was one of them.
Yeah, I think there was a number of reasons for the refusal. Just have a quick look at my notes, Chair.
I just think it's important for the record that we actually make a detailed note of the proposed reason for refusal and the provisions of the local plan that members feel that it was contrary to.
Councillor G, you propose refusal grounds?
No, I didn't. What I said was I would have liked to have gone for refusal, but I'm happy to go for a site visit. I didn't actually propose refusal, which is the difference. So I'm happy. I'll reject that. And no, I said I would like to go for refusal, but I will go for a site visit.
Okay.
Chair, does that mean that there wasn't actually a proposal in that instance for
Well, I
refusal?
think there wouldn't be because it was seconded. It was, so yes.
I don't know who seconded it, Chair.
I do.
Chair, it was I. But because there's no proposal, the second doesn't carry it. The reason, to my mind, was putting a block of flats in the middle of that estate, access parking, overbearing, height.
Okay. Anyway.
But that's irrelevant.
Have we sorted that out now?
Yeah, I think that's sorted, Chair. I think Councillor B was just confirmed.
Right, Thank you. Item 3B.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in for a minute? I know, I hate to interrupt. Just for the sake of clarity, and so that we're not actually getting carried away with previous site visits, I'd like clarification, but I recall the previous site visit, which I think was for a property on number 3, was coming out on a totally different side of the road. So I wouldn't want people to be swayed by what may or may not have happened in some previous application. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well, I didn't know why the comment was made anyway, but there you go. Item 3B. For change of, I've lost my paper now. You messed me about that much. Bear with me. I've that many pieces of paper here. But anyway, item 3B. It's a change of use from a field from agricultural land to the walking and exercising of dogs and the creation of vehicle parking area. And I can't remember, the sheet I can't find. Oh, it is. Yes, I have. I found it. The officer's recommendation is planning permission is granted subject to conditions. And I have 2 registered speakers, the objector, Barry Bibby, and the agent, Chris Wheatman. Barry, Chris, can you speak and hear the proceedings?
Yes. Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And Adele's going to present this item. Now, Adele, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The application site is located in the green belt and comprises a roughly rectangular shaped open field located on the south side of Wood Lane in Maudsley. Wood Lane is also a public right of way. The site is surrounded by open agricultural fields with hedges and intermittent trees to the boundaries, and the nearest dwelling house is Woodview, which is a bungalow located approximately 100 metres to the northwest of the site. The Rock and River Outdoor Pursuit Centre is located further along Wood Lane, approximately 120 metres to the southwest of the site. The application seeks planning permission for the change of use of the field from agricultural use to the walking and exercising of dogs, with the creation of a vehicle parking area for up to 5 vehicles, accessed directly from Wood Lane. The use of the field is proposed to be limited to single bookings and a maximum of 6 dogs at any time, with the exception of group social sessions or training sessions, which would be limited to a maximum of 1 hourly sessions every 7 days and not commencing prior to 11 o'clock.
in the morning. Representations have been received from 7 individuals raising objections to the scheme on grounds including traffic generation, pedestrian and highway safety, the poor state of repair of Wood Lane and Nook Lane, harm to the greenbelt and noise and disturbance. There have been no objections raised by technical consultees. The Highways Authority have commented that they do not have any objections to the proposal and state that they are of the opinion that the proposed development would not have a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity of the site. Members will note that a condition is recommended requiring the car parking areas to be available for use prior to the first use of the proposed development. For the proposed dog exercising and training use, a low number of vehicles are expected on the lane, which would not be a significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity. The Highways Authority have, however, requested their maintenance team inspect the lane and allocate resources as required to repair any damage. The proposed change of use, including the car parking area, would effectively preserve the openness of the greenbelt, given the simple low-level surfacing and lack of curb edging of the car park and other permanent structures, and there would be no conflict with any of the purposes of including land within the greenbelt. The proposal is therefore not considered to be an appropriate development in the greenbelt. It is not considered that conditions restricting the number of dogs in the field would be enforceable or necessary, particularly given the proximity of the nearest neighbouring dwelling in any event and the intervening features. Conditions are, however, recommended to restrict the hours of operation further to those proposed by the applicant. In summary, it is considered that the proposal would not result in any unacceptable impacts in terms of ecology, highway safety or neighbour amenity, and that the proposal is acceptable and is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Adele. Barry, would you like to speak now? And Taz, can you start the timer, please?
Evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. This application essentially, I believe, does not meet the criteria of the B&E 1 policy set out in the local plan, and it is and it's going to generate significantly increased traffic on a single track private road. Lancashire County Council highways, in my view, don't have an objection because it's a private road and it hasn't been assessed for that purpose. The beginning of the lane is adopted, but that's only for about 100 yards. The rest of it is private. And in the past, we've had previous planning approvals at Cliffs Farm, which included requirements for maintaining the lane and passing places, which were not adhered to. They haven't been delivered upon. We reckon that this is going to increase the number of journeys onto the road, which is single track with passing places, possibly, at maximum capacity could be 18,000 cars a year, but on the presumption it doesn't even get close to that. 5,000 cars a year is enough. The lane is a public footpath. It's a right of way. It's also being used as a bridle way. So more traffic going backwards and forwards. The lane's a dead end. There's no way out. And so from that point of view, this is going to be a constant problem. The next point is there are more than just 2 houses within about 120 metres, and mine's one of them. And anybody who's lived or been close to a dog kennel business will know that dogs barking travels and disturbs other local dogs as well, and that's a problem. It's the increased traffic will mean that our amenity is going to be prejudiced and deteriorating. In addition, we will lose some privacy because we'll have cars going backwards and forwards nearby. So I mean, the main one is traffic, but in addition, It's it's flat land, noise carries. In addition, there is a very good dog walking facility about 200 yards away. It's free, and a lot of people already use it. Those people are not going to go and pay £10 an hour to go and park the car and walk the dogs up around a field when they can go and do it 200 yards away now. So I don't even think it's a necessary beneficial service to the local population.
Through you, Chair, I think that's over 3 minutes, and I think, Chair, you're muted. Chair, you're muted.
I am. Yes.
Apologies, I wasn't aware. I was expecting somebody to say your 3 minutes is up. So apologies.
I was muted, so it was my fault as well. I'm fed up with this mute button. Okay, Chris, would you like to make your representations now? Can you start the timer again?
Thank you very much, Chair. First and foremost, as the officer's report has already indicated, the application is in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework and the open use of the Green Belt. Much has been made about the highways issue. Figures of 5,000 and 18,000 trips have been bandied around. I don't know where those figures come from, because it is a very limited use. People can come and go by the hour. So essentially a car will arrive at, let's say, 11 a.m. and that car will leave at 12 noon, and another car may arrive at 12 noon. And somehow or other, that's going to result in 18,000 trips a year. And then in addition to that, the objector has just stated that it's going to cause loss of residential amenity. A cursory look at the plan that is submitted showing the position of the application site and the 5 nearest properties will show that actually you don't actually pass those 5 properties or in front of those properties or behind those properties to reach the application site from Bluestone Lane. Therefore, I think it's fair to say that the issue of residential amenity is a somewhat muted one. It is correct to say as well that the nearest properties are around 97 to 100 metres away. The 5 nearest properties are 97 metres away, 125 metres away, 135 metres away, 136 metres away, and 171 metres away. With regards to noise, noise is one of those issues that has been raised before, and I think members of the committee will recall a similar application in Heath Charnock. However, the difference between that site and this site was that the site at Heath Charnock, the proposed use of the field was immediately adjacent to residential properties. It wasn't over 97 metres away. As such, Chair, I would like the committee to endorse the officer's report and approve this application subject to the conditions they have put forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Right, members, over to you. Any comments, questions? Councillor France. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question. The objector mentioned about horses being ridden along the path. Is it a bridle path? It's just a question for officers, that's all.
No, it's not.
Is it actually? It's not. Thank you.
What's the hell? Your voice has changed.
Sorry.
Yes, you don't make any comment now. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just put my hand down 1 second. I'll forget. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a strange application, this one. you know, it is in the middle of the green belt. It is in the fields. I do walk Wood Lane a lot, and I was on there on Sunday morning. Wood Lane and the surrounding area and the route down to what we call the Crossing at Maudsley Moss is very scenic and also very peaceful. I was literally coming out off the moss on Sunday morning. All I could hear were the birds cheeping. There was a kestrel flying above. It was absolutely stunning, to be honest with you, and it was lovely and sunny. There is no doubt that this type of operation will have a loss of amenity on that local area. Whether it's a loss of amenity on the local residents, I think it's more of a loss of amenity to everybody that uses that area. I still can't get my head around why a field with a fence around it is required to walk your dog. There is around about 22 miles square, 200 yards away from this compound, which is the Crosston Eccleston Moss, which is perfectly adequate to walk your dog on. If it's being used as a training facility, then I'm even more concerned, to be perfectly honest, because that will involve whistles, and whistles and dogs go in hand. I'm not in favour of the application. I know there's not much we can do to actually contest it. It does meet the tests of the planning policy, and as the planning officers have quite rightly said, doesn't have a detrimental effect on the surrounding area. However, I won't be supporting this application because I think it's wholly inappropriate in this location. Like Mr. Wheatman said on the previous application, that was adjacent to and right next door to residential properties. This isn't, but this is an even worse situation where it's right in the centre of the rural countryside in a very peaceful and idyllic end of a lane. I'll just get on to the traffic down the lane. Anybody that knows and uses that lane will tell you that for a number of years it's been in a very, very sad state of repair. I think around about 18 months ago, it was resurfaced by the owners at Rock and River. It wasn't resurfaced to a very high standard, but they've done a good enough job, so they've not got lots of potholes. I would be very concerned that with car movements over the next few years, it will just degrade back into what it was, which was virtually undrivable around about 2 years ago. So I'm afraid I won't be standing by the planning officer's recommendations on this one.
Thank
You're
you.
muted,
I've got No, I'm not. I've got Councillor Beaver and Councillor Morwood. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to echo everything that Councillor Boardman's just said, because I was lining up to say that. The lane we're talking about has a similar problem, Common Bank Lane, which is within my area, and that's used by Ruttles, and that's dug up, and it's like a battlefield. And I agree that in time, that property, that lane will deteriorate. But what I was saying about let's take the arrival of someone at 12 o'clock. They won't arrive at 12, they'll arrive at 10:02, so they can get themselves ready. They will use the hour, and at the end of the hour, they will get back in the cars and they will leave at 10 past. During the meanwhile, someone's arriving at 10 to 12 for their appointment. So at one point, you're going to have twice the expected people on that side. So it's going to be more. It's going to be twice that capacity for about 25% of the time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, interesting. It's all in the middle of the countryside. Why do you need dog provision? Well, I didn't think anything about this until the last application, which we refused, which has been talked about by one or two councillors already, because it was on top of a residential area. And then the number of dog owners who contacted myself and probably other members of the committee explaining the absolute necessity, particularly those who are in town and don't have a lot of green area to do it. This seemed to them an essential requirement. So, I mean, who am I to refuse the dog owners something that they seem to need? Ruttles, I think, is a bit different from half a dozen cars going up and down, because I think was a maximum of 6 dogs at any one time. I'm of mind to accept the recommendation, simply because there does seem to be a need for it, and going on what we've done before, and if it becomes ridiculously noisy and starts to be total, well, start to annoy neighbours, etc., in such a way, then perhaps enforcement will be able to come back later and do something about that. But on the face of it, I'm happy to accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Taz, do you
Chair,
want
you're
to say
muted.
something? No, I'm not. I've unmuted.
Yes, Chair,
Taz?
through you, Chair.
Yeah.
I just have one comment to make. I've heard a number of members refer to a previous application, and the only thing I'd say is obviously this application is different to that. So obviously each case should be considered on its own merits. That's all. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I think we were aware of that. Thanks. Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Chair. Some of the figures that are talked about, 18,000 vehicle movements, I don't know where those come from. Down that lane, there is Rock and River. It's busy all the time, especially in the school holidays. So I don't think that's going to be that significant an issue about it. You only need to go for a walk in the countryside, as Councillor Boardman often does. I don't know if he's got a dog, but you'd be amazed how many people walk dogs. They're important friends for families. So if Councillor Boardman's proposing the officer's recommendation, I'd like to second it.
I can't. Councillor Boardman, I'll let you answer that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Whittaker. I wasn't definitely not supporting the officer's recommendation, I'm afraid. Now I've got an opportunity to speak. I think if councillors are minded to vote for, I think we should actually move for a site visit, because I think you need to see this area. It is only a field, and let me say, it's just a field in the green belt just off the Rock and River entrance. But I think it will be quite useful for planning committee members to see this. So I will move for a site visit if possible.
Shouldn't have let you speak, should I? That'll
Thank you.
me. Councillor Beaver, do you want to come back, or have you just not put your hand down?
I'll just second that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That is it, right. We'll just, Councillor Whittaker, have you anything further to add? Or have you not put your hand down?
I haven't put my hand down, which I will say that I don't support a site visit. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, we'll take that vote in a minute. I would just say that some people don't like to take their dogs off lead in the countryside. They prefer to keep them on lead, so they like to exercise them in a secure field in defence of people, especially if you've got a nervous or a rescue dog. I know that's quite a common thing. So, Councillor Dalton.
I don't support a site visit, and I recommend that Councillor Martin Boardman's proposal for refusal is upheld on behalf of the countryside and noise abatement, etc., etc.
Right. I'm just writing these things down, so I've got it. Anyone else?
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Councillor Boardman here, Chair. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't move for a refusal. I wouldn't support the application. I wouldn't support the application, but I would like to have a site visit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Martin. I got that wrong then, but I would still go for refusal.
Through the chair, please.
Sorry. Thank you.
Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether anyone moved it, but I moved the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Dalton, any more to say? No. Right. Councillor Chris France.
Yeah, as I said, I've read the report. I'm quite satisfied with it, to be honest. I'm more than happy to second Councillor G's proposal.
Okay, thank you. Right. Anybody else wish to make any comment before I try to take a vote on this? Everybody's spoken that wants to write. So I've got a proposer and a seconder for a site visit, proposer and a seconder for the officer recommendation. All those in favour of a site visit, for or against? Just a minute while I write my piece of paper. Right. Councillor Beaver, for or against a site visit?
For, Chair.
Councillor Boardman.
For, Chair.
Councillor Dalton.
Against.
Councillor Gordon-Trans.
Against.
Councillor Danny G.
Against.
Councillor Gray.
Against.
Q. Councillor Hargreaves.
For.
Councillor Hilton.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Morwood.
Against.
Councillor Whittam.
Against.
Councillor Whittaker.
Against.
Councillor Chris France.
Against.
And myself against. So I think I'm not going into numbers. I say we were against the site visit. So we'll be for or against the officer recommendation, please, this time. Is that right, Taz?
That's correct.
Excellent. So for or against the officer recommendation. Councillor Beaver.
Against.
Councillor Boardman.
Against.
Councillor Dalton.
Against.
Councillor France, Gordon France.
For.
Councillor G.
For.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Hargreaves.
Against.
Councillor Hilton.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Morwood.
For.
Councillor Whittam.
For.
Councillor Whittaker.
For.
Councillor Chris France.
For.
And myself for. So I think that is carried. The officer recommendation is carried. Is that right, Taz?
That's correct, Chair. So the planning permission has been granted subject to conditions. And
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody else. Moving swiftly on to item, turn it over as quickly as you can. Item 3C, Rivington View Barn, New Road, Anderton, pages 61 to 84. Adele's going to present this item. It's recommended planning permission is approved subject to conditions, and I've one registered speaker, the agent, David Robson. David, can you speak and hear the proceedings? David? Anyway, well, we'll see if he comes. Adele, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Oh, I think that must be David. Okay. Right, Adele.
This application seeks planning permission for the introduction of a new gable window to an existing stone-clad garage in order to retain roof space as a home office, and also for the retention of a 2.7 metre high retaining wall to the site boundary. An oak frame garage that formed part of the original proposal has been removed from the proposed scheme. The property is located within the Greenbelt, and the neighbouring property, which is Tampits Farm, is a Grade 2 listed farmhouse. The adjacent fields to the west are at a significantly higher level. Representations from the occupiers of neighbouring properties have been received, raising issues relating to the height of the wall being overbearing and out of keeping, its safety and flooding impacts. The boundary wall is considered to be an engineering operation and is therefore not considered to be an appropriate development within the Greenbelt. A 2.1 metre high retaining wall was approved in 2009 along the similar boundary, and the position has not deviated so significantly that the wall would result in encroachment into the countryside. The proposal is therefore considered to accord with the requirements of the National Planning Policy Framework and local policy. Whilst the neighbouring property is a listed building, it is not considered that either the proposed garage window or the wall would impact on the contribution made by the setting to the significance of the building. The Council's Heritage Advisor is of the same opinion. The wall does not form part of the street scene and is substantially screened by the adjacent buildings. The proposed window in the existing garage would only be visible from within the site due to its location and orientation. As such, it is considered that the development would not impact detrimentally on the visual appearance of the site. The wall is set back along the boundary of the site with the return step downwards to not impact on the neighbouring habitable room window. The proposed window in the existing garage would look towards a private amenity space of the applicant's dwelling. Consequently, the proposal would not impact on the amenity of neighbouring residents. The proposal is considered to represent an acceptable form of development and it is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Adele. David, can you make your representation, please? And Taz, can you start the timer? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's David speaking.
Yeah,
you'll just have to bear with me. It's quite a bad line. Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of words about the application. So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I think the key comment for me to raise is that the garage has been removed from the application. Secondly, the wall at the back of the site was approved in November 19 for a height of 2.1 meters. That has now been constructed to a height of 2.7 meters. So effectively, it's risen in height by 600 mil, or in old money, 2 foot. Was done on the recommendation of a civil engineer, and the wall was being constructed due to the height of the banking behind the wall. I'd also just like to point out that there's no evidence of flooding or incorrect drainage on either side of the wall. Certainly obvious from the applicant's property. So all in all, I think ultimately I can't really see any reason why this can't be approved. I don't really need to say anything else. Thank you.
Chair, you're muted.
Mute. Oh, I am. I'm not doing this well tonight at all, am I? Over to you, members, for any comments, questions. Councillor Boardman, you were first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, slightly confusing application. The description still says there's a new garage going in, but clearly there isn't. Site plan shows an existing garage and an existing wall. I take it this application is to legalise the 2.7 metre high boundary wall from 2.1, so that's retrospective, and the gable window to the garage is the new addition. If that's the case, then I don't have any issue with the application. If the window overlooked adjacent properties, I would be quite concerned. I'm not, so I would move to approve the application and support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marwood.
Yes, very similar. I'm not quite sure why the applicant thinks that it was allowed for 2.1, so we just built it 2.7. So what's 2 meters here or there? Well, perhaps they could have come back and asked. That would have been quite useful. But I'm happy enough to go with the officer's recommendations. But just a reminder to people that if you go for an application and you get permission to do something, well, do it right, please. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments from anybody? If not, I'll move to the vote. As I've heard everything to the contrary, anybody is against the officer recommendation, speak now. No. In that instance, everybody is in favour of the officer recommendation. Thank you. Taz?
Thank you, Chair. So that application has been granted, subject to conditions.
Yes, thank you. Item D, 3D, the Old Mill House, Pall Mall, Chorley, pages 85 to 104. Adele's going to present this item, recommending that planning permission is granted subject to conditions. No speakers. Adele?
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the old mill house at 99 Pall Mall, and which is located to the south of Chorley Town Centre and is currently used as an assisted living residence. The application seeks planning permission for the conversion of the building to create 4 self-contained apartments, including changes to door and window openings. The proposal would provide 3 2-bedroomed apartments and one bedroom apartment. No neighbour representations have been received. LCC Highways have responded to identify that the proposal would deliver fewer off-road parking spaces than required by the council's normal parking standards. However, the sustainable location of the site, being well served by public transport, and the availability of nearby public car parking provision mean that it is not considered there would be adverse impacts on highway safety or local amenity due to the deficit in off-street parking provision. The proposal is therefore considered acceptable from a highway safety perspective. A planning condition is recommended to ensure that the delivery of a secure cycle storage area for 7 bicycles, i.e. 1 for each bedroom, would be provided. The site is located within Chorley settlement area, and so policy V2 of the Chorley local plan applies, and members will be aware that this policy provides a clear presumption in favour of appropriate sustainable development within the settlement boundary, subject to material planning considerations. The proposed development involves minimal changes to the external appearance of the building, limited changes to window and door openings, and the repair of rendered to exterior walls. A planning condition is also recommended to ensure that the external materials match those of the existing in terms of appearance. Some of the proposed habitable room windows in the northeast facing elevation would directly face the blank side gable of number 97A Pall Mall at a distance of approximately 9 metres, and others would look over its rear garden. The existing building, however, has the same relationship with the neighbouring property, and so it is not considered in this instance that the proposed conversion would create any additional impacts upon residential amenity. All other windows respect the council's interface distance and are considered to be acceptable. In summary, therefore, the application proposes a sustainable form of development, and it is accordingly recommended that the application is approved subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
You're muted, Chair.
So I am. I'm being that efficient and getting everybody's name down. I'm forgetting to do that. Councillor Marwood, Councillor Hilton, Councillor Beaver. Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely no problem, I think, with this application. I know the site well. There's plenty of parking. I'm impressed with 7 bikes, and I hope all the residents have bikes. That's very, very good. So I'm happy to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, same as Councillor Morad. Happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Jay. Yes, I was going to second it, but perhaps we could advertise this to NHS professionals.
No. Anybody else wish to make a comment? If not, I'll move to the vote. If anybody's against the officer recommendation, please speak now. No? Right. Okay. So that is planning permission is granted. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, sorry. I think it was Councillor Beaver that had their hand up, but they've actually put their hand down now. So.
Well, he did speak.
Yeah. And yeah. Recognise it was my fault. Thank you, Chair.
He thirded it, Taz.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so all right with that one now. So that's the end of the that. Item 4 is the appeals report, pages 105, 106. Any comments, Adele?
Yes, please, Chair. Members will be members will be mindful that we had a provisional order made last year for the trees on the Pear Tree Lane site in Exton. As part of that process, we notified local residents and other interested parties, including the owner of the land. As a result of that consultation, we did receive some objections from the the landowner, and accordingly we have taken those into account and we have amended that provisional order. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the provisional order in full is provided in your document and is entitled Appendix 1 of the addendum with regard to that item, and the modification schedule is also appended. As I say, you know, we've given opportunity to comment on the provisional order. We've taken those comments into account.
Adele, are you talking about the TPO or the appeals report?
No, I'm talking about the TPO. Oh, sorry, I've jumped one. It's
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry.
I was confused.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't see that on the agenda. Shall I carry on, or do you want to go back to the appeals?
No, it's not. Well, we'll go back to the appeals. Carry on. This is the TPO. This is item 5.
Yeah, I'd
the
written them down wrong.
in Epsom.
Apologies, members. I'd written those down wrongly in the running order, so apologies for the confusion. But just to recap on the TPO, we issued a provisional TPO. It resulted in comments. We've taken those into account, and we've therefore made modifications to that order, and we're now proposing that it's actually made in full.
Okay.
Thank you,
Councillor G.
Yes, Chair. Totally confused then. I was looking for the appeals then, and I couldn't find it.
I was confused
really
as well. Don't worry. I've sorted out your confusion.
Yes, I'm more than happy to go with the officer's recommendation on this one. It's something I wish we weren't doing, but life is life, so I'm happy to go for the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Somebody like to formally second that, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to make any comments? If not, I'll move to the vote. Councillor G, you've not put your hand down. If anybody's against that, will they speak? Say no, and if not. So everybody is in favour of that course of action. And now we'll go back to the planning appeals. Any comments on those, Adele?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do apologise.
It's quite all right, don't worry.
It's been a long day. Yeah, there are the appeals that are lodged. All but one are for to be determined through the written representations procedure. And just to flag there that the appeal for Taylor Wimpey will be subject to a public inquiry, and the premise of the appeal and the reason for refusal was on the basis that not in an inadequate amount of affordable housing was being provided, and there was a lack of other contributions towards infrastructure. I don't have any other comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So
moving noted, Chair.
Thank you. We'll note that report. I have no urgent business, so that's the end of the meeting. Thank you. So ICT, can you stop the recording, please? Good evening.